Greetings! Welcome to the second featurette for Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades 2. I'm Anton, game director, and today we're going to be talking about hands. So what's in this featurette in all? We're going to talk about the core pose and pose blending systems in H3VR2. Then we're going to talk about context conditional hand poses in complex interactions. Then we'll see some examples of gun to controller pose offsetting during gun handling. Then we'll talk about the physical parts of each gun that you can actually hold it from. Then handle single and multi-round object holding, which is primarily relevant to cartridges. We'll talk about physicality a little bit, how physical the hands actually are. And then we'll end with a little bit of glove talk and give you a bit of a tease for what is going to be in the next featurette. So let's dive in. A quick disclaimer on this, just because I've seen a little bit of confusion. It's one of those things that, like, when you make cool video of a game, folks can oftentimes assume that things are like way closer to done than they actually are. And with what we're showing off to you, the level of finish and lack of finish is very, very uneven in a way that's like clear if you're on the development team, but not clear at all when you're a viewer. And so what that means is that some effects are not finished or tuned. There's effects that are missing. A lot of things are temped in. So a lot of the like gun firing sound is also temped in, or like sounds have been borrowed from one gun or another. So just like don't overly fixate in the like, I don't see any impact effects there, or like what's with these little debug draw lines each time the gun fires. It's a work in progress. This is an in development game. Lots of things are in flux and lots of things aren't done yet. Cool. So to start off with, as I covered in our first H3VR2 featurette, the core of our hand system is lovingly authored hand poses. There's no procedural grip, no wibbly fingers, just attention, care, and craft. You could say they're artisanal virtual hands. For guns where hands interface with each other, like pistols, this is a lot of work because you have to define a pose, not just for like whether you're holding something with one hand, holding it with two, and that's going to change whether you're holding a given thing with the left or right hand. So yes, that means that for certain sorts of interactions, we're having to define 4 whole hand poses for it. And because a lot of those controls are not ambidextrous, it's not like we can just flip half of those poses. It's a lot of manual work. There's no shortcuts for excellence. There's certain interactions in H3VR2, like for the trapdoor rifles action here, where the hand needs to pivot around a specific part of that interaction as it's being operated and completely change posture, whether on, say, you're pushing that interaction piece forward or pulling it back. As you can imagine, many of these are also asymmetric left to right, so the way they look when you're interacting with your left hand versus your right hand is different. You can see a more subtle version of this too with bolt action rifles, where the hand shifts and reorients a bit as you cycle the bolt. Even when it's subtle, this sort of pose blending just makes an object you're holding in your hand feel so much more tangible. Another hand pose system in H3VR2 that we are super proud of is the clumsily described object to controller pose offset system for gun handling. To help explain what this is, why it's important, why it works, I'm going to use a little demonstration. This is a toy, just to put it out there, not a real Derringer, fake Derringer. So but pretty much in all VR games, when you go to do that have hands, when you go to do an interaction, like say cock a hammer back, what ends up happening is that the hand sort of moves into position and then it does that interaction, say pulling the hammer back. And the position of the held object remains constant relative to like your controller. But that isn't how these sorts of things work in real life from a gun handling standpoint. A lot of components on a firearm have some sort of spring pressure in them, which means you need leverage, especially when they're a tiny, stupid Derringer. And so with something where with a hammer that you might cock, what would happen is, if this was a full strength spring, is that you would sort of cant the gun a little bit in your hand and move your hand forward to get a little bit of leverage to pull it back. And so the gun would actually say come off of the direction that you're pointing it. That's how all of our interactions, where appropriate, function In H3VR 2, we have a system that basically allows us to dynamically mix back in the delta between the various sort of base and extended poses of the hand as an inverse. So when you go to like cock the hammer on a revolver, open and shut the breech on a rolling block, the gun actually moves in your hand relative to your controller, which makes it feel like it's actually in your hand. This was one of those like surprising things that was like way more impactful, but also requires like a lot of manual tuning per interaction. So like when in doubt, make more work for yourself, but it's worth it because it feels great. In H3VR2, we have greatly expanded the number of parts of each given gun that you can hold that gun by. In H3VR1, it was basically just the main grip and the forward grip, and while you could grab other parts of the gun, you couldn't hold them by it. In H3VR2, pretty much everything that would make sense to be able to hold the gun by, you can do so. So this means that for pistols, you can just do ridiculous action movie stuff where you throw it up in the air and you grab it by the slide and you air rack the gun and toss it back into your hand. Just like in the first game, you can pump a shotgun and operate just one while pump action shotgun one-handed by firing it and tossing it up and grabbing it and racking it. I'm fairly certain I'm the first person in VR to ever do that one, by the way. And you can even do some things that you should never do in real life, like racking an AR-15 by its bolt handle alone. Seriously, don't do this with a real one. I'm fairly certain the average charging handle is not meant to, receive those stress forces gracefully. But of course, super fun to do in VR. When it comes to grabbing things in H3VR2, we're using a hybrid grip system. What that basically means is that for most objects, you can grab them by using the trigger or using the grip button, and you can sustain that grip with either, and you can sort of transfer it between them. For certain objects, though, that you hold more than one of at a time, like cartridges, whether you use the trigger or the grip button determines what behavior you get. So whether it's off of a surface, out of a pocket, or even laser grabbing from a distance, if you pull the trigger, you will select one round into your hand. Whereas if you grab by the grip button, you will grab an entire handful of them. And then, of course, once you're holding them, you can do the various sorts of ammo manipulation things that you used to for H3, like dropping one round out of your hand or shifting to the next most appropriate round that's in your hand. I already know that some of you will be asking, like, all right, does that mean that we can do the like stacked like double loading or quad loading thing with shotgun shells? And I know a couple folks have already asked that, and the answer is I don't know yet. We will look into it, but obviously that's like an entire second contextually appropriate set of hand poses. You wouldn't want to double load hold them like that if you were like using like side by side shotguns. So yeah, a lot of investigation to do. We'll see if it feels good. I don't know if that'll be a for launch thing or an after launch thing. So I'll get back to you on it. Folks have asked if the hands in H3VR2 are physical, and they are, although in a restrained way. The palms are physical, and so you can slap things, you can brush objects off of surfaces, you can finally punch things. Oh, the poor Sosigs are not going to enjoy getting punched. But there's no finger physics or any of that stuff, because with the number of small objects and small interactions that we have in game, having physics active fingers would be, I want you to try to imagine putting together like a Lego set, but someone has numbed your hands from the wrist out. And while that would be like fantastic fun for the whole family to watch you try to do it, not exactly the best infrastructure for a precision gun simulator to have for its, for its interaction systems. So, but hey, you can smack the bolt releases on all your AR-15s, and I imagine once we get around to actually getting an MP5 together, it's going to be fantastic to do this lap. And lastly, tons of folks have asked whether the hands in H3VR2 will be customizable. I am happy to announce that they most certainly will be, because we have like an entire vertical of collectibles that are all various sorts of gloves and skins for those gloves. So some of them are going to be more mundane and realistic. There's going to be like a driving glove and a tactical glove and a utility work glove. And then a bunch of them are some pretty zany ones, which I'm not going to spoil yet because they'll be more fun when you experience them for the first time and go, ah, when they're on your hands. So yeah, and if you're wondering how you put them on as a tease of what's coming next featurette, H3VR2 has a full inventory system in its wrist menu where you can swap out gear, backpacks, and yes, what pair of gloves you're wearing. So if you want to see more about the inventory in H3VR2, make sure to tune in for our next featurette in 2 weeks. Anywho, that just about does it for Featurette 2. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on all our H3VR2 socials for the very latest news, meme videos, and make sure to like, subscribe, wishlist the game everywhere. And I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful rest of your week.